Welcome to the Health Fix podcast, where health junkies get their weekly fix of tips, tools, and techniques to have limitless energy, sharp minds, and fit physiques for life. Hey, health junkies. On this episode of the Health Fix podcast, I'm interviewing Laurie Hammer. She is the podcast host of the Take Back My Brain podcast. And she also is a guru in amino acid therapy. And we're going to be talking all about amino acids and how they can help your brain, and especially in perimenopause and beyond, but also looking at the brain in dementia, in mood disorders, and beyond. Now, Laurie got into this because she was struggling with an eating disorder and realized that if she could work on the brain, she could work on helping her body with cravings, helping her body with really being able to make better choices. And of course, I'm always talking about with folks that life is a choice and you have a choice. But what if your brain needs a little tweaking, a little bit of repleting of amino acids to help you to make better choices? Because so many people will come to me and say, Doc, I know what to do. I just can't do it. Well, what if it's an amino acid thing? What can we do from there? So let's introduce you to Laurie Hammer, where she talks all about amino acid therapy. Laurie Hammer, welcome to the Health Fix podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, since I was on your podcast, so folks, you got to go check out the Take Back My Brain podcast. We now know we have lots in common. So this is going to be really fun because I'm fascinated by amino acid therapy. I've played with amino acids probably most of my career, but I always love to get different perspectives. And now that we have so many tests out there, I want to kind of pick your brain on tests a little bit today. And then of course, for you guys watching on YouTube, you're probably noticing that she's got this interesting looking mat behind her. And for those of you who are listening, we're going to be talking about things like shungite. We're going to talk about tourmaline. We're going to talk about EMFs in a way that you haven't heard me likely ask someone or talk about before. So sit down and enjoy the ride, guys. All right. So Laurie, amino acid therapy. I always like to get the scoop on what drew you to it. Where was that aha moment where you were like, this really works? Like, this is the thing that I want to dedicate to my life to educate folks on. Give us a scoop.
Well, it was way back in 1996. So I'm going to date myself. I'm 52. So 1996, I was very sick. I had anxiety, depression, eating disorder, a lot of issues going on. And that's when functional health wasn't cool. So, and I couldn't get into an eating disorder program because I wasn't suicidal enough and my weight wasn't low enough, but my life was really a mess. And thankfully, I was in nursing school at the time and I had a professor that read an article about amino acid therapy. And it was a clinic in California and she read it in a random GNC magazine. And she's like, you need to call this place. And so I called out there and talked to them. And their mantra was, rebuild your brain and then your cravings go away. You stop binging and purging. They also worked with other addictions. And so I went out to Mill Valley, California, to this place called Recovery Systems, outpatient. And that's how I got exposed to amino acid therapy. It literally, Janine, saved my life. Once my brain was rebuilt, the anxiety was lifted, depression lifted. I stopped the craving cycle. So if you're not craving, you're not binging and purging. And it literally saved my life. And it's been my mission since then to share amino acids. Even before I became a practitioner, I was like, everybody has to try these amino acids because they literally saved my life. And then I became a practitioner and that's what I do now.
I absolutely love to hear stories like that where someone's like, this saved my life. And now will tell anyone that's a captive audience to listen to my story. And right now we're in a place where a lot of folks are having cravings, and especially over 40 as the estrogen declines and we're trying to navigate the perimenopause and the menopause transition. I have a lot of folks, and unfortunately this is kind of the reality of where life is, who are on peptides and they're using the weight loss particular peptides to help with their cravings instead of looking at, okay, what can we do under all this to get that craving situation under control? And so I would love to kind of dive into that a little bit. And I'm guessing you're probably seeing folks on, tirzepatide or for other folks, it's Wegovy, Manjaro, all of those and trying to get off and not keeping going up and up and up on dosage because that's another thing I see. So tell us a little bit about how are you navigating that side of things with folks?
Yeah. So, because amino acids are foundational. You can't have peptides without amino acids. So I take people back to, this is the basics. You can't build anything if you don't have the amino acids to build on those those peptides. And so when helping people come off of peptides or, mood medication, whatever, we're rebuilding those deficiencies. So if you're deficient in serotonin, GABA, your catecholamines, your endorphins, well, let's use specific amino acids to rebuild those so that stops those cravings, regulate your glucose levels, and you don't need those peptides. So you don't have the side effects going on anymore.
My gosh. And this is I want everyone to hear this because I don't, microdosing GLPs, like we found some good benefits for inflammation and whatnot. But at the end of the day, if you're just using it to control your appetite, we got a bigger problem. We
A
got to
bigger
look
issue. Mhm.
yeah, we got to look back. And so, of course, a lot of people are going to ask me, then they're going to be like, well, how do I test my amino acids? What's the best test? I'm super curious since this is your jam. What is your favorite test? What do you use and how do you guys go about it in terms of
I am
interpreting?
super basic and simple, and I want it to be as easy as possible for people to understand this because I don't use any urine blood. I don't use any of that. So I have a questionnaire that I give people and I have them fill it out into 5 different categories, 0 to 10. You're rating all these symptoms. And then I send you an amino acid kit in the mail and we test the amino acids sublingually. So we open up the capsule, put the powder under the tongue, stare at each other for 2 minutes, wait and see what your body does. Does something change cognitively, emotionally, or physically? Then we know that that amino acid is for you. And if it doesn't change, we move on.
My goodness. So it's, one of the things that I was taught at best year was a neuroprovocation test.
Mm.
And much like that was the amino acids under the tongue. And it's like something I, have dabbled back and forth in practice over the years. And I haven't thought about it for a little bit.
It's so fun. And because we're so disconnected to our bodies and what our brain can do, I love that testing method because it forces people, and I don't even use the word force, it like you all of a sudden become aware of things that you're not aware of. Like, my brain feels lighter. I didn't realize it was that heavy, or I had a client the other day and, things just lifted off of her chest when we got the right amino acid. She's like, it just left. Whatever was here making me feel like I was having a heart attack, it's gone now.
Nice. I don't think that, this is talked about enough. Like, I know I haven't brought it up and definitely one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about amino acids in this light, because I think a lot of folks, what'll happen, and I'll be honest, this is kind of how I look at things. If I see the aminos off, I'm going to usually, kind of compare symptom to what someone needs, but being able to feel it in your body, its benefit is so huge because so many people tell me I'm taking all these things and I have no idea if they're helping or not.
Right. And the amino acids are one of the few things in this, functional health world that you can actually get an immediate benefit from. And so my goal is just to give people that win and for their brain to all of a sudden feel like it's balanced. And then everything else that we're wanting to do, healing the gut, maybe they need some hormone, adrenal, all that kind of work. Then you can go there and address those things, but they're more grounded and they can process that. And they already know that their body isn't completely broken because this therapy works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we're in the society of we want that quick result, right? And this is a
Yeah.
great way to know like, okay, am I right there? Can I
Yeah.
move forward? Yes, no, which direction?
Yeah.
My goodness.
And you're going to get a positive in about 90% of the people. So I send 9 different supplements in my kit, and not everybody's going to respond to all 9 of them. Some of people do, but 90% of the time, you're going to respond to at least one of them. And, the other 10% of the people that don't, well, then there's something overriding that system. And, then we'll figure that out too. But 90% is a pretty good rate.
That's impressive. That's
Hmm.
impressive. And with the kit like that you send out for folks and you guys are doing it, face to face, are you also like, do they repeat it? Do then you send out a custom, blend of aminos for them? How does it work from there? I'm super
Yeah,
curious.
so we'll use a therapeutic dose of single amino acids for a while based on their response. So if they responded to, we'll use 500 milligrams of GABA, 500 milligrams of tryptophan. We'll dose that in that higher dose 2 to 4 times a day. And we'll tweak it. You're always going to need to tweak things for probably 60 to 90 days because as your body is adjusting, your nervous system calms, diet changes, all those things. So you might go up, you might go down. but it's just dosing therapeutically for a bit. And then you can take like a total amino solutions just to kind of maintain after that.
Gotcha. So the idea, and this is because I think a lot of folks are always wondering about different vitamins, minerals, aminos. We can replete what we were out of, and we don't have to stay on that super physiologic,
No,
dose for like eons.
ever. No, 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 no. And I teach people just to use things as needed. I mean, you're always going to have a stressor that comes up, whether it's a car accident or even a good thing like a marriage or having a baby. You're going to just get depleted. When my mom died, I needed to go back on some of the amino acids for a while because I helped take care of her, and then the grief and the amino acids helped through all of those things. And so then I went back off of them when I didn't need them anymore.
That brings up a great thought in my head with the grief component. And
Uh-huh.
and I think a lot of folks, we go through the grieving process. It is a huge change, especially with the loss of a parent. But I think it's also that, we think it's all we have to process it up here.
Right.
And that
Right.
maybe, and this kind of piggybacks off of our podcast, and definitely we'll put that in the podcast notes, guys. But it's showing us like, okay, we have the foundational things. We're working on the mindset. We're working on how we're thinking through things. But sometimes we need a little bit of a boost to help get through our process a time in life.
Yeah. Yeah. What I have seen over the years personally and with, I don't know how many countless clients over the years is so many people spend so much time in therapy. And I'm not against counseling. So just nobody, please take this. When your brain is nourished and balanced, you don't have as much to work through. You don't have as much drama and trauma going on in here and all the chaos as you did. So I had done lots of groups and lots of therapy to overcome this eating disorder. And it was still this and this and this and my parents and this and that and my past and trauma and all those kind of things. Once my brain was balanced, there wasn't as much that I couldn't work through, and then my mindset changed, and my ability to, like, deal with life on life's terms was a total 180.
This is I want to say I would probably say back to foundational a little bit in
Yeah,
terms of why people will get stuck in patterns and thought loops. And maybe, in the case of choice, which is a big one that I like to talk about,
yeah.
why we don't feel like we have choice, or why we don't feel like we have options in
Mhm.
certain situations.
That is so true, and we do, and when your brain is happy, you understand those choices. I had a client, she came to me on 5 mood medications from age 15, and she was 35, and so she had never dealt with life unmedicated from teenage till, 35-ish, never. When we got her off the medications, because that's why she came to me, she's like, "I wanna get off these, I want to feel real again. I want to feel the emotions and I want to navigate life this way," because she didn't know who she was. She's medicated since she's 15. And we got her off all of that. She was literally able to go home to the family that she had trauma with. And she actually enjoyed being there. She was able to process what she needed to process. And then she was able to she had her boundaries. She didn't get sucked into drama. And that's all because she got herself healthy. She got her brain balanced and nourished. Of course, we did other things besides that, but not being medicated in this season of life, in this time that we're in this world, there's so many medicated people out there, and they start them so little, and people don't get their brain to develop and to feel the feels and the emotions and to learn to process things. And you see all this dysregulation. And I'm seeing some really sick and traumatized people from being on these medications.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it breaks my heart. So, yeah.
That's, I mean, a lot of people are taking different meds and not sure that they even feel any better or any different. It's just maybe more of like a flat line. And now with a lot of my podcasts being folks who are over 40 who are going through the perimenopause, menopause, roller coasters of mood and thought, it makes me think a lot about how folks are using, the hormones directly to be like, okay, I'm teary, I'm going to use estrogen. Okay, I'm angsty. I want, to get rid of my husband and be on an island with, none of my children,
Yeah,
anyone.
yeah,
I don't want to talk to
yeah.
anyone,
Don't
okay.
breathe my air.
Right. Just stay out of my space. Like, okay, that we're using estrogen and progesterone there, but we could be using some amino acids before we even
Yeah.
got to the hormones to help with emotional regulation.
Yes, 1,000% yes.
I am curious because, of course, I mentioned the map behind you, and we had talked to previously about the depletion that happens in our bodies with
Yeah.
EMFs. So
Mhm.
electromagnetic frequencies, Bluetooth, those kind of things. Do you think that there is a direct depletion related to these of certain amino acids? And
I
what do you
do.
know? I haven't looked anything up.
Yeah, I don't think there's a ton of research, comparing the amino acids. Actually, I haven't found any, to be honest with you. But my theory is that yes, is depleting the amino acids in our body because it changes our entire vibration. Our cells are get depleted when our vibration goes down, and that's exactly what those EMFs do. And so, how can we raise that vibration? Well, one of it is just nourishing your cells, and amino acids are foundation to all proteins. So you have to nourish your body with those amino acids. And I'm focusing on the neurotransmitters in the brain. And so there's very specific, supplementation for that. And I feel like it raises the voltage.
Wholeheartedly agree. And right now, one of the things that's hot, everyone's talking about, you got to have protein, you got to have protein, you got to
Yeah.
have protein. And
Yeah.
and in theory, if you're breaking down the protein well and you're getting what you need, you will get fuel to the brain. But I feel like we still have some level, if you're experiencing symptoms of different moods, obsessive compulsive,
Yeah.
even one of the other big ones that I hear a lot, and this happened to me, is that I would go to like negative worst case scenario thoughts when I would never
Yeah.
do that before.
Right.
But it was like instant, like driving along, and I'm like, what if I crash? And then I would like
Yes.
turn to like the worst crash ever. And I'm like, this is so
Yeah.
stupid. I'm not going to do that. Like, what is going on? What with aminos in that kind of concept, what have you found for like worst case scenario and like trauma, like disaster looping?
Yeah, definitely serotonin deficiency. Definitely serotonin. So then we're going to come in with 5-HTP or L-tryptophan is my favorite. So I always start with that first and see what profound changes we can make.
Yeah. And then, of course, use some mats and different
Yeah.
things like,
Use other things. Yeah, it's like the stuff behind me.
yeah, yeah. And then in terms of, another really common one that I get, and we could easily say estrogen, progesterone, would be helpful, but I'm looking at it in the aminos department. A lot of people will come in and they'll be like, I just don't really like my partner anymore. Like my
Mm.
libido is down. I just feel like I need, to move in a different direction. Maybe, maybe it's time for divorce. What do you find with aminos in that? Is this serotonin again, or is this
Yeah,
dopamine?
we're
Is
going
it?
to serotonin, catecholamines, because that apathetic feeling, towards people or things is definitely a catecholamine issue. I've seen marriages saved just by doing amino acid therapy and getting the man and or the woman, healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then your mindset changes and then they're much cuter when your brain is balanced. They
Right.
smell better. I mean, you know what I mean? Like there's just it shifts absolutely everything when your neurotransmitters are firing and healthy.
I mean, that alone, just like they look better to you. Obviously, you liked him at one point. What happened?
Yeah,
And that makes sense looking at the neurotransmitter connection there. A lot of people will go to oxytocin, but oxytocin is like such a quick in out of the system. It's not going to replete. Now that fascinates me in terms of a full spectrum study on
right?
happiness
I
and
know. I would love to see that done. I would love to see it done. Or even your endorphins. Like when your husband hugs you, like I'm assuming when you got married, it was the most yummy place to be.
hmm
Right. And if you don't feel that yummy anymore, well, let's look, maybe your endorphins are low too. So then we can supplement with amino acids, get that firing better. And then maybe that's your favorite place to be again. Yeah.
Right. My goodness. I'm, over the years have dabbled, right? And you're kind of giving me this sense of like, I think I need to go back to dabbling in
Gotta
these
dabble
things.
again. Yeah. Yeah.
Dabbling again. It's funny how I don't know, at least in my practice, I've kind of went in and out of different things and
Yeah.
different gravitations, but like you've stuck with amino acids for your career. And I mean 1996, that's a long time for
Long
learning
time.
with aminos. I mean, I
Yeah.
graduated high school in 1996. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I get that.
looking at like
I
that's a
graduated in 92, but yeah.
it's it's sticking with them. I'm just gonna quick shut one thing here. Sorry.
Sure.
The dog jumped in the room. I apologize. It was getting loud.
Yeah. That's good.
So
Usually mine's back in the bed, but he's not in the room today. So
I'll edit this out. I was just like, I'm gonna
yeah.
show that. But with it going back to the concept of looking at a quick fix, what I have found with amino acids is that it is quick, like you were mentioning, you can see things change. And I think that, looking at things a little bit more holistically and how you were saying we can also use this as a jumping point for folks to get on board with some of the more foundational health things
Yeah.
and making choices and the brain. Let's dive into the brain a little bit more because
Okay.
so many people have frazzled brains
Yes.
and fight or flight. We've talked about the vagus nerve. We've talked about releasing trauma from the body. And it seems to take people many years because they've been in therapy, and also
Yes.
I see therapy being beneficial, but when you've been going over and over again and nothing's changing, we're
Yeah.
missing the
We're
boat.
missing. Yeah, we are. Because you can't talk yourself out of that. I mean, you can speak life. I really believe in speaking life. And when you're speaking positivity and stuff, that changes your health. It changes your cells, changes your vibration. When you're going over the same trauma again and again and again, and it never ever leaves you, then that's not helpful. Your brain needs to be rewired. I mean, there's so much neuroscience around that now. And I believe nutrition, the amino acid therapy helps that process along.
I agree. I'm looking at it, on the lens of like we almost need catalysts because I find that for some folks we'll get stuck in trauma loops, we'll get stuck in different things and we can't seem to move forward there. And in personal growth, for example, I made the joke that I've done with my one friend. I was like, I've done a lot of personal growth and realized that, I'm fine, everyone else is crazy. But the truth is
That's
the
so true.
it's so true. I mean, it's not me, but at the end of the day, we're looking at like how all the tools that we're taught with personal growth, all the tools that you're taught just in a functional, nutrition visit. So many people come back to me and will be like, I didn't do anything. I'm frozen, I'm frozen, or I know what to do. I just can't do it.
Yes.
And, we're looking at it in a phase of like, okay, we can get the neurotransmitters dialed in a little bit better to move.
Right. To move. Yeah. Yeah. Get your brain out of that stuck, that fight or flight, sometimes that freeze.
Hmm.
Sometimes you're not flighting, you're just frozen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's an incredible thing, for folks to really let that sink in for a minute. And that's kind of why I repeated it twice in the podcast here, because I wanted folks to really hear that. The other big thing is right now, it's incredibly popular. I don't know if popular is a good word, but it's incredibly common for folks to have toxic brains, meaning
Yes.
we've got leaky gut, we've got leaky brain, we have mold toxicity, we have
Mhm.
MCAS, so multiple histamine chemical sensitivity components. How do you work with amino acids in that department with the the neurochemicals and the signaling? How do you weave that in with the toxic brain
Yeah.
that needs some help?
I just always start with amino acids. Like, let's just nourish the brain first and then let's see what's left over. Like, I don't really deviate from that at all, Janine.
Gotcha.
Somebody's like, oh, I have the MTHFR. Okay, great. Okay, let's do amino acid therapy. I've got MCAS. Great. Let's do amino acid therapy. I think I have parasites. Great. Let's do amino acid therapy. Like, let's fix the deficiencies so that your neurology in your body is calmer. Your brain can think differently. And when those two things happen, then that parasite protocol is going to be better. Then that gut protocol is going to be better. Like we could go on down the line. We have to be able to think clearly and to make those choices that you always talk about. So then those other things just work better.
I think that thinking clearly, I mean, is one of the biggest issues, hands down. And in fact, I'm thinking to myself right now, I'm like, I probably needed some amino acids this morning to get my time zone stuff dialed in. And going, what would be the best there in terms of let's go like straight brain fog.
Yeah.
What different realms of amino acids would be relevant for brain fog? Or is there one that seems to be most common for brain fog?
Because everybody's going to be a little different. It could be serotonin that's creating that brain fog issue for people. It could be GABA, could be your catecholamines. You need a little tyrosine. It could just be glucose regulation. Well, let's give you some glutamine. And I've seen it, lift in all of those or a combination. It's not usually just one, it's a combination that usually does the trick for people.
That makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. And in terms of like the best route to take them, it sounds like for the higher doses, we probably got to do the capsules, but the under the
Yeah.
tongue, like I've used that with L-theanine. I've used it with a couple of different other ones, like in the moment to try to calm a situation. What is your favorite route? Is it powders or is it capsules? What do you think it's?
It's capsules because you can just open up and put the powder under the tongue, and then you can carry them with you, where powders is kind of a pain in the rear. But
And they don't taste that good. I mean,
they
glutamine's
they
okay.
glutamine's fine, but tryptophan and 5-HTP and LP, I mean, they don't taste good.
Yeah. And so all of the different powders out there, because that's another thing I get asked a lot is like the perfect aminos and all of
Yeah.
those out there. You would mention that you like something for like a baseline going forward after you do
Yeah.
the like repletion. What's your favorite like combination formula out there?
I honestly like Total Amino Solutions. It's all of the aminos. It's not just, 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Like, we're in a society where you are literally deficient in all of them. I know technically you only need 9 and you can make the rest, but if you don't have all the foundations in place all the time, you're not going to make them. So let's just be honest. So I like Total Amino Solutions. It's got everything in it that you need.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Total amino solutions. We'll keep that in mind because, yeah, that is something I find with the different, like, I would say a lot of them are more recovery based
They
types of
are. I mean,
ingredients.
great. Use them after, you worked out, you did CrossFit, you ran a 10K, whatever. Fine. Use those. I'm not opposed to any of them. They're all helpful. All of them are helpful. So I gravitate towards, the Total Amino Solutions. It's capsules. It's not a powder. So you're not going to put it in your water after workout, those kind of things. But you can, take 4 capsules and you're going to be good to go.
Gotcha. No, another thing that I see, because I actually tend to test micronutrient tests in the
Sure.
blood. And what'll happen is there's aminos that come with that.
Hmm.
And because I haven't focused specifically on aminos, what I'll often see is we'll see a lot of phenylalanine show up, and then I'll see a lot of histidine show up. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm very curious what your thoughts are on, I get the little printout that
Yeah.
has info there as to why someone might be deficient. But I'm like, in this modern society, why do you think that I would end up seeing those two showing up quite?
Gut microbiome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Noted. Noted. And then I think the other third one that I see a lot is threonate.
Yeah.
So yeah, threonine. There we go.
It's so good
Threonine.
for your brain.
Yeah.
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 So good for your brain.
And magnesium threonate is why I said threonate, guys,
Yeah.
because that we need, that's the magnesium for the brain. But threonine, yeah, that one shows up a lot. And so it's like we're just brain powering. Like, would you say
Yeah.
the brain is just churning quite a
It
bit?
is just churning. It's getting bombarded with, we were talking about frequencies. It's getting bombarded with toxic food. It's getting bombarded with whatever's in our air and our water. And a lot of these toxins have an affinity for fatty tissue, and that's your nervous system. And so they're going to get sucked into there. So until you, rebuild the brain, and then your body's like, oh, I can get rid of these toxins now because it's going to, if you're overly toxic and your brain is stuck, you're not going to release those toxins no matter how many detoxes you do. It's just not going to come out of here. And so once we calm the brain, we nourish the brain, then your brain can release the things that it was holding on to because it's just doing it out of safety.
Yeah. I didn't think about it that way. I didn't think about it that way in terms of the toxins going to the fatty tissue. And obviously I thought about fat in the body, but I didn't think about the
Sure.
brain and the nerves. Hello.
Yeah.
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 So when you're using amino acid therapy, obviously you have adjunct therapies. And so I do want to dive into shungite and some of the different, gems that are out there, as I like to call them. Tell us a little bit about what are your go-tos for, you've got the amino, what other things might be involved in a protocol that folks might be getting
Yeah.
exposed to with you?
Like we talked on my podcast, foundational everything, diet. We dial in your diet so you're getting the cleanest food possible. That's the most nourishing. We're getting outside in sunshine, regulating your circadian rhythm, putting your toes in the ground, water, drinking clean water for your shower and, your cooking and, all of those things. So those are always foundational. And then I do some testing, what do your hormones look like? What do your adrenals look like? Because if those are messed up, what can we do functionally that's going to help, to regulate those things as we're regulating your nervous system? And I, things like, the bed behind me, I recommend different therapy devices, whether it's a bed or DNA Vibe, which is a great little device you can travel with in your car. So I have a lot of things that I'll recommend to people. Castor oil packs, that can be a game changer for people. Coffee enemas. Nobody wants to do coffee enemas, but I love coffee enemas. They're so good for you.
Interesting. Yeah, I nobody does want to do them, but they have been like, on the radar for, I mean,
Yeah.
being a naturopath, that's like a foundational thing. When do you think that the coffee enemas are most like relevant for someone? When would someone introduce it in a protocol? Like what?
I would say after you kind of have your foundations more in place and your body isn't so overburdened with those things, maybe like 90 days in, we might talk about them then.
What's your
Yeah.
favorite source of coffee for the coffee enemas?
Ooh, I'm just trying a new one now. It is Trust Your Gut, and I really, really like it. I went to a holistic place in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I can't think of the name of it at the moment. I would say, I think it's just Scottsdale Hydrotherapy. Scottsdale Hydrotherapy. So shout out to them. So I did their colonics and some other things there. And then they have their own line of coffee, and I tried it, and I really like it. I really, really like it. So that's kind of my new favorite at the moment.
Nice, nice. So 90 days in. And because I think a lot of the other big thing, and we kind of talked about this too. You guys got to listen to Laurie's podcast with me because it kind of
We had so much fun. Yeah.
it syncs really well. And part of what I'm thinking about with the colonics and different colon hydrotherapy, but also using coffee enemas, I'm thinking like a lot of people try to do all of this stuff at once, like all in the
Yeah.
same realm.
Yeah.
And so what I'm hearing from you and is that health restoration takes time
Takes
and
time.
sequence.
Yeah. I mean, I've been working on my health since 1996. I didn't do coffee enemas in 1996. I think I started doing them maybe probably 15 years ago. It wasn't something that I was like, hey, let's do one. That was not on my radar, especially my kids were little at that time too. And I don't think I would have been able to do it, when you have toddlers and stuff running around. I mean, I have clients who do have toddlers and they can get it done, but it's much more relaxing if you're not navigating a toddler in the bathroom while you're doing one.
I couldn't imagine.
And when your children are older, they don't want to come in. So it really is your alone time. I just have the dogs. Both dogs like lay at my head when I do a coffee enema, so I can't do it totally by myself, but nobody's coming in the bathroom with me.
Right. And dogs, you know what? They're soothing to me.
They're
I'd be all
soothing, and I think, yeah, it's good. I listen to a podcast and my dogs, so it's fine.
That's perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I think it's really important for folks to think about is coffee enemas might be something that's like that. I make a joke of that's a level 5 biohacking. Like you got to get through like level 1 and then
Yeah. Start with the
move.
castor oil pack. That's pretty easy. Maybe a magnesium bath.
Those
Do some tongue scraping, do some of the easy stuff first.
Yes. Talk to us about your castor oil protocols. How do you use the castor oil? Do you use a particular pack? Are you old school and get people using their rags of fabric or
Yeah, no, I don't do those anymore because they're so messy and people won't do 'em. Let's just be honest. So I say go find an organic cotton wrap that ties on, that's fine. So you can find those on Amazon or anywhere. So, and I'll use, hexane free organic castor oil. There's a good one on Full Script that I recommend to all my clients. I use it to help move my bowels. If I feel stuck, I'll put castor oil over my belly and then I'll do, a rub, on my belly. And that really helps too. I love castor oil. Put it on my face.
it is the thing for the face lately too. I've heard so many people mentioning that.
I don't use fancy schmancy stuff. I mean, I'm just, if I need an exfoliation, I use baking soda. If I want extra, I'll put in some castor oil. I mean, it's just basic stuff. I'm not fancy. This is all you get.
Me either. I'm lucky if I get makeup on one day.
I know. I'm like eyeliner and mascara. Like I'm good to go for the day. We're good. Uh-huh.
Absolutely. No, I think less is more. And especially when it does come to skincare, I back in a previous life, I owned a spa and we had
You did.
estheticians.
Fun.
Yeah, it was fun for a minute. It was fun for a minute, but then I realized like it's too many moving parts, right? And
Yeah.
the 10-step aesthetics products, like I'm like, my gosh, do we need
I
all?
can't do it. Yeah. I had cystic acne growing up because my gut was such a mess. And so, I did all of the skin stuff and it was not my skin. It was my gut, clearly, and toxicity. Yeah, I don't even go there anymore. Like just baking soda and, I wash my hair and like use my shampoo to wash my face. I mean, we're good.
Hey, and one of the things, and this is what I tell a lot of my folks, that frees you up to be able to do other things for your health.
Yeah.
If you have
Yeah.
some routines that you've really simplified. And
Yeah.
those are definitely my jam. I don't,
Yeah.
super easy. Super easy. So,
Yeah.
my goodness, such good stuff here, Laurie. And you definitely got me thinking about amino acids again and cycling back through
Good.
them again. Because I'll be honest, I kind of let it go just because probably something new and shiny,
Oh, I'm
hit.
sure.
Let's try that thing. But I like to hear when folks have been using something over and over again and getting consistent results. Now, to the point that you are teaching other practitioners.
I
Tell us a
do.
little bit about that because I know a lot of folks that listen to my podcast may be in the realm of being a practitioner of one sort or the other. And
Mhm.
let's hear how they
Yeah,
can.
no, I have a certification program where we go through all the ins and outs of amino acid therapy. We go through each individual amino acid, how it affects the brain, when to use it, when not to use it, how to navigate medications, how to implement that with whatever your niche is. I've had some moms come into the course that weren't practitioners and they got certified in amino acid therapy just for their family and friends and doing all those kind of things. So we have a lot of fun. We meet once a week, do a mastermind every single week. We go over case studies. It's great. I love it. It's my favorite thing in the world to do is teach about amino acids.
Hey, you're well versed and I can tell, how much you like it just from how you light up to talk about it. And that's something that's absolutely important. And of course we have to talk about your podcast too.
Of
So
course. Yes.
take back my brain.
Take back
Did
my brain.
so obviously you're talking a lot about amino acids, but you're bringing on some guests too. What
hmm
what can folks expect from you going forward with Take Back My Brain? What do you got in the
What have I
hopper?
gotten for? So we're gonna expand. We're gonna start maybe releasing twice a week instead of once a week and doing some more solo episodes and just really focusing in on more brain health because brain health is such a big topic right now with Alzheimer's, dementia, other neurological conditions. And I don't want people to normalize any of it. And so that's always my goal with any podcast I do is we can't normalize this dysfunction. We can't medicate away the nutrient deficiencies. We've got to actually have this conversation because there's so many we'll use lots of different words, whether it's neurodivergent or autistic or this or that. And some people get upset when I'm like, well, why don't we just balance the brain so people aren't neurodivergent and they aren't autistic, right? Don't we want people to function on a higher level? Because that's what we're created for. I don't believe God created us to function on a lower level. And or in a very difficult way because some of these people that I see being neurodivergent or autistic or just being on medications for years, they're struggling. And so if there's something we can do to people don't have to white knuckle through every single day, I mean, that's what my podcast is about. So, and that's why I do what I do.
Such a huge topic when it comes to, yes,
Mm.
neurodivergent, different things that we've almost kind of, yeah, normalized it and then given it a whole like, it's okay, let's, move through life like this.
Yeah.
ADD, another one
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. Everybody's on Vyvanse now or, one of those similar medications. And, menopausal women, perimenopausal women, I'm like, maybe we should look a little bit deeper. I mean, you're not deficient in that medication. Let's fix those deficiencies so that you do age well. Yeah. And get
right.
you back into the rhythm. We're so dysregulated as a society. And that breaks my heart.
It's easy for us to blame a lot of things on different, conditions we have. And in
Yeah.
particular with menopause, I think I've seen like multiple podcasts lately of ADD. Now
Mhm.
neurodivergent comes out, and you didn't come out like that before. Word
Right.
salad and brain fog, and cognitive just decline in general. And so I think it's incredibly important for us to pose that question, like,
Yeah.
maybe we need to look at the aminos. The other is back to Parkinson's, back to Alzheimer's,
Yes.
whatnot.
Yes.
I've had an influx for sure of folks who
Oh my
have
goodness,
been
right.
diagnosed. Parkinson's in particular, it seems like it is just rampant. And, there's a lot of folks out there talking about the B vitamin deficiencies, the toxicity, this and that. And one of the big questions I have for a lot of folks that are working on restorative health, and this is kind of partially of me trying to figure it out too, as we're all trying to figure out what's going to be the best option. When there's such a need to detox someone because they are quite toxic, is it much like what you described before, replete the brain first before you go to, a coffee enema in the toxicity department?
Yeah. And I have tried it the other way.
Hmm.
And, because people are like, oh, no, 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 you got to detox first in order to heal the brain. I'm like, no, these amino. And then people are like, no, no, no. And then you listen to, the expert or your coach at the time and you do it the other way. I'm like, this doesn't work very well. And I'm seeing way more issues than if I would have just started with the amino acid therapy first, and then we can go into those other things.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of cases right now where amino acid therapy would be the way to go. And I think what I'm missing is not doing the singulars, doing, Apex has dopatone, Apex
Oh,
has,
yeah.
the
Great
blended
stuff.
great stuff. But I think what I'm missing just hearing you talk and I always learn from podcasts. And so I'm like, I missed the boat because I was doing combination
Yeah.
formulas with folks. And singulars are probably wholeheartedly more of the way to be going here.
Yeah. Yeah. They really are, because then you can get that therapeutic dosing in there.
That makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
perfect sense.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, we've talked about a lot of different things and folks, are probably thinking like, okay, Laurie, amino acid therapy. Clearly Dr. Krause is not a specialist in it, which is why I love bringing folks on. We've got to tell them how they can work with you specifically more than just a certification so that they can get some insights into literally bringing back their brain.
Yeah,
Totally bringing
absolutely.
it back, taking it back both
Taking
ways.
it back. Yeah. So every single social media is at Take Back My Brain, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all of those. So you can find me there. You can message me on Instagram, or you can go to lauriehammer.com, and there's a free session that you can, schedule for a 15-minute session. Tell me your story and I'll let you know how I can help.
Awesome. And I love the idea of the questionnaire that you have for folks too. Like
Yes. The quiz is very fun. So jump into that.
sounds like the best way to go to kind of get some good insight. Thank you, Laurie, so much for coming
Thank
on.
you.
I sincerely appreciate it. And guys, you definitely want to check out our podcast swap where we both were on each other's, and I'm going to have the notes at drjkraussnd.com. Thanks again, Laurie. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
Hey, fellow health junkie, thanks for listening to the Health Fix podcast. If you enjoyed tuning in, please help support me to get the word out about the podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review, and just get that word out. Thanks again for listening.